Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the third Swim Smart webinar, this time on Dryland. Let's look at the live chat here. Put in a poll just to get started. All right. All right, we'll wait 1 minute and then we'll get going. I have the chat here in front of me, so if you guys have questions as we go along, please let me know. Hello, I've got the webcam working. This is kind of cool that we can do all this now. All right. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about Dryland. I just saw a post on the coach's Facebook page asking what people think about Dryland, and hopefully some of them come and join us because this is perfect timing. I can't wait to see what you guys think, if you have any questions. And we'll get going here in a few seconds. We have a couple other webinars that we did, one on nutrition, one on energy systems. I won't keep them up forever, but they'll stay up here for a little bit. Same with this. This will be recorded, so if you don't make it through all the way or we get disconnected, it'll be up on the Swim Smart YouTube channel for a while. And if you want to share it with your team, with your parents, to help them understand what Dryland is about, please feel free to. Okay, I think we can get going. We've got a few live viewers. So we're going to talk about Dryland today and going to try to make it a little bit clearer. The thing is that Dryland is just one of those things that if everybody knew exactly what to do, nobody would ask any questions, right? So we're going to try to uncover a little bit of it and kind of organize it in a way that we can understand. That way, when you are developing your program, you know what you're kind of aiming for, what the goal is. You can explain it to the kids understand, they trust you, they trust the training. That's the goal. We want the kids to trust the training. Okay, so a little bit about me. Why does Carl know anything about Dryland? I did do some exercise science, I did do some med school, but in a former life I was an actual competitive power lifter, and at one point I weighed 170 pounds and I could deadlift 600. So I grew up in the Dryland world. That's my original claim to fame. I don't hold it much. I don't hold any swimming records, but I do have a couple weightlifting ones. But this is not the goal, okay? Not for you. To deadlift 600 pounds, that's useless to a swimmer. And so we're going to go through a lot of the different thought processes. I'll try to help you think critically about Dryland. So before we get started, I like to always know where are we going, So here are kind of the goals of the day. So understanding how the swimming machine, which is you, adapts to different types of Dryland trainings. We're going to try to compartmentalize different Dryland so that it kind of makes sense to us. I mean, think about Dryland. It can be running a mile, it can be powerlifting, like clean and jerk and the snap. All of those are Dryland, everything in between. So how can we divvy that up and compartmentalize it? I've chosen 4 training types, which I think I can define with my finger, or define in one sentence what they are, what they do, and how they differ. And I think it's really important, if you don't learn anything else, is that whatever you do in Dryland on land, it needs to mimic what you do in the water, right? There's this concept in exercise science called specificity, and I'll show you an example of why this is so important. But if you can tailor Dryland to mimic or improve specific swimming motions, you are going to be head and shoulders ahead of everybody else. I think flexibility training is a huge component that is overlooked. If you guys see any master swimmers try to race, they can barely get in a streamline, right? And they may be physically more fit than a younger swimmer, but the fact that they lack the amount of flexibility that a younger swimmer has, it makes a huge difference in their body alignment, their ability to cut through the water, their ability to get traction on the water. And then the last thing we'll touch on briefly is this periodization. So that's kind of a fancy way of saying season planning, right? And there's no one right way to do it. I'll just show you kind of an example of how I think about it. And then at the end, I'll take you to our website where you can actually get there's a lot more information I would share with you, but it takes a long time, exercise videos, this season planning stuff. I'll show you where to find that on our website, as well as some other resources that we'll dig in a little deeper if you want to know more about this topic. Okay, if you zone out, I know we're going to talk here for a little while. You're probably doing a couple other things while you're listening to some random guy on the internet talk to a microphone. But if you zone out, here are the kind of the highlights, the most important things that you should remember. Please don't get hurt. Okay. Where did my mouse go? I lost it. Okay. So number one, don't get hurt. Dryland is not a replacement to swimming. It is a supplement. If you get hurt doing dryland activities, lifting too much weight, trying something new that you're not ready for, this is a great way to end your season and maybe cause permanent damage. So I'm going to talk about things and say things that may sound extreme, but you never have to go that far. You can go only as far as you are comfortable, as the swimmers are capable. So this is rule number one. Okay, we want to do specificity of training, and we'll go through a lot of these exercises that I have listed. We're going to divvy them up into specific swimming motions. Again, we talked about flexibility training, and I've been that coach where I took dryland very seriously. I wanted my swimmers to take dryland very seriously, and if they didn't, I would get very upset. And as I get older, I've learned to be more patient. Dryland is probably one of the few times where the team is on deck and they can talk to each other. And so this is actually a great team building environment, especially for the younger swimmers. So if dryland time turns into playtime, or it's maybe not taken as seriously in the beginning, don't let it get to you. Just keep emphasizing what's important, keep at it, and the kids, once they want to get faster in the water, they'll start taking this more and more serious, and it'll grow on them. So before we get into kind of more nuanced details of stuff, how does dryland actually help you swim faster? And I think it's a little different between younger swimmers and older swimmers, but let's just go through a few important benefits of dryland training. So number one is body awareness, and I would say this is especially the case in younger swimmers, so 10 years old and younger. Think about if you ever see a puppy on the sidewalk, or if you have a puppy, the way they walk, the way they run, it's like their body's kind of all over the place, right? They can't really control where their limbs are going very accurately, and so they look like they're awkward. Same with swimmers, right? If you watch younger swimmers, they're very awkward in the water, and that's because they don't speak. Their brain and their muscles don't have good communication skills yet, and so one of the things about dryland training in younger swimmers is to improve that. A little bit bigger muscle size. I won't go through a lot of details on this, but especially I would say in girls. Girls obviously have a lot less muscle mass than guys, especially in the upper body, which is what swimming is mostly consistent of. So if we can develop some of those muscles, especially in girls, upper body stuff, I think that will help. A big thing is overuse injury prevention. So this has been known in running, in skiing, cross-country skiing, that weightlifting in these sports is not to actually improve the ability of the athlete to perform the sport. It's actually to prevent them from getting injured. And so dryland can help for that. I think we've mentioned flexibility, and I'm going to show you some not new ways to train your flexibility, but maybe something that is reserved for more physical therapy, which I think a lot of people can incorporate into their own dryland. But I think if for many of us who are listening, if you're in the weightlifting world, you got college level swimmers or good high school swimmers, the point of dryland is this: it's to create coordinated and more powerful muscle contractions. So I'll give you an example, going back to this picture. When I first started deadlifting competitively, I could not deadlift 600 pounds. I could only deadlift like 130, 150, 200 pounds, right? And but I only weighed 170 pounds. So a few years later, after I improved my training and got it really nailed down, I still weighed 170 pounds, but I could deadlift 600. So why? I mean, my muscle mass didn't change. So what changed for me to be able to do that? It's the muscle coordination. How the muscles work together is I would argue almost as important, if not more important, than how much muscle and how well trained that muscle is. Okay, so I think when we get into the details of this, we're gonna talk about several ways of Dryland that can help improve this. And you might have heard this as like athleticism, right? Some people are athletes; they can jump high, they can move fast. That's what we want to improve. All right. Cup of water. Any questions so far? Any comments? If you guys have a topic in Dryland that you want me to hit up or try to answer, I'm more than happy to. Awesome. So little kid Dryland. This is all about body awareness and body control. So if you were going to draw a picture of what a little kid looks like, I think it would be kind of like this. Now I stole this from a different chapter. It's from the motor learning chapter, but it's complicated. The point is not to go through this in detail. The point is to look at all the different arrows and connections. So everything kind of north of the red line is your brain. So motor cortex is the top of the brain. You have cerebellum, thalamus, basal ganglia. These are parts of like the deep brain that are in control of motor function and sensory function. And what you can see is that all these arrows, there's all these communication lines between the brain and the muscles, between the skin and the thalamus, between the cerebellum and the basal ganglia, right? And all I want to highlight here is how much neural connections there are in the body, not just going from top down, but also from the bottom up. And these neural connections are what we want to develop in younger swimmers. So how do we do that? We do that not necessarily with swimming exercise, but these simple contract and relax oriented exercise. And these are things that you probably already do. Push-ups, squats, sit-ups, just even, games. All of these are trying to get the kids to just actively use their brains, use their muscles, and improve the communication skills and the neural net highways. We don't have to, so what I'm trying to get at is when you're training 10 and unders, 12 and unders in Dryland, it's not about actually improving the muscle itself. It's about improving the nerves behind that. So we don't, I don't care how many push-ups a 10-year-old can do. It's probably not going to affect how much of a fast swimmer they're going to be when they're 18. What I care is that they do it correctly, that they learn how to control their bodies, that they're not just, waving their arms around randomly. And again, especially with little kids, this is the time to build the team and to build that love of swimming. Play games, do relays, teach them something, make it into story time. If that's all little kid Dryland is for you, I think you're going to do, I think those kids are going to really want to come to practice when they're older and, they're in their teenage years and they kind of want to rebel against everything. Okay, moving on. So we talked about specificity of training. I want to show you why that's important. So there's a study out there. It was done a long time ago, and I just broke it down into this one graph. So they took a bunch of regular people, and they said, okay, we want to improve your squats, right? So squats is it's mostly legs, right? So you would think that, well, no matter how you train your legs, it's going to improve your squatting, right? Well, what they found was they split up the people into three groups. One group did just squats, so the actual exercise. Another group did leg press, which is very, very similar, right? But not exactly the same. It's not a free weight. And the third group did leg extensions. And after a few weeks of training, they came back and they tested how well their squats improved. Well, as you would expect, the people who trained squats improved the most, right? They had the greatest improvement. The people who trained leg press had a huge deficit, right? I mean, their improvement was only 50% of the first group. If I remember the study right, I think the number was literally 50%. And it's surprising, right? I mean, you would think it's the same exact motion, same exact muscles, but their improvement was not the same. And the people who did leg extensions statistically did not improve at all after weeks of training, even though they trained the exact same muscles. So what's my point here? The point is, it's not just the muscles and that you're training, it's how you train those muscles. It has to replicate what you want at the end of the day as closely as possible. Okay, so when we're on land, we need to actually bring it back to swimming motions. Okay, and I've broken it down in my way. If that's how you agree with it and you want to steal it, please do. If you want to do it your way, that's fine, as long as you can come up with an explanation and a reasoning behind it. But I think this idea of specificity of training is really lost on a lot of, when you hire somebody to run your Dryland program and they did not grow up in the swimming world, they did not grow up in the pool, oftentimes they do a lot of Dryland that's geared for football or for soccer or for something else. And I don't know if it's that beneficial, and it's probably just going to increase your risk of getting hurt. So I want coaches to be aware. Alrighty. Big kid Dryland. So this is where we're going to get into the meat of things. We're going to break complex Dryland stuff down into several categories. And we'll start with the swimming motions, right? We said that anything you do on land should mimic what we do in the water. To me, these are the four main motions that I would like to train on land. Jumping, so going off the blocks, jumping off the walls, pull outs, stuff like that. Pulling motions, obviously we pull ourselves through the water in most of our races. So this idea of reaching out with your arms and pulling it back to your body. Pushing, so another way to say this is a return to streamline. All our strokes during the stroke cycle return to that streamlined position. So I want to train that ability. And then the last thing I have is abs. So swimming is very, like, we're using our arms, we're using our legs, we're rotating. There's a lot of coordination that has to go along, and it all runs through the middle of our bodies. And so training the abs to be able to hold everything together in tight formation keeps us in that streamline, keeps us coordinated, and helps us move through the water faster. Great, so now we have the motions that we want. How do we want to train these? Is there different levels, different zones of training? I think I can break them down into four, and these are them. Circuit training, which is kind of, you set up stations, right? And you just go from one station to another. And we'll go through each of these individually, and I'll show you what they look like. And then these three kind of go together. Actually, they feed into each other. Strength training, which is maximizing muscle recruitment. Power training, which is moving kind of medium weight fast. And then speed training is kind of the last step in the cycle, where you get rid of all the weights and you're trying to move your limbs as fast as possible with maybe a minimal weight. And again, we're going to go through all of these one by one in detail. So if things are confusing, let me know in the chat. Okay, so we'll start with circuit training. So imagine that you've been off for the summer break, or it's been a couple weeks in between seasons. The kids are coming back and they haven't swam, they haven't done any Dryland. So we're transitioning from this off season to in season. And the kids are maybe a little soft, they're a little out of shape. We want to get them in shape, we want to get them in get them back to training well as fast as we can. Circuit training is the only training that improves VO2 max. So this is the only thing that is that gives us a cardio improvement. And this picture I stole from our cardio chapter, which I think if we do another webinar, which I'm sure we will, our next one will be cardio, because I think it's such a huge piece of the puzzle when training swimmers. And I think it explains a lot of how swimmers feel in the water and how you should think about training. Anyway, trying to not get off on tangents. But why does circuit training improve VO2 max? Well, it's because you're forcing the blood to pump. You're forcing the heart to pump blood to all pieces of the body. You're trying to pumping blood to the legs, to the arms, to the abs. And when the heart has to do so much work for a good amount of time, it struggles with that. And so its response to the struggle is to improve cardiovascular output. So this is great for early in the season. It's good for young swimmers. We're going to use very lightweight, right? The kids are out of shape. We don't want to hit them too hard with stuff. And you're going to set up a circuit of exercises. I'll show you some examples of what that looks like. And we don't really care about the reps. It's not about, sets of 10, sets of 15. It's actually about time. I would set it up for like 30 seconds, 45 seconds for each exercise, and then the kids go to the next station, and it should be kind of continuous effort, almost like they're swimming continuously. And we want to do good technique. We want to get our fitness up so that when we go heavy, when we start doing more serious dryland activities, the kids know what to do, they know how to do it properly, and they won't get hurt. So here are some examples of circuit training. So let's say like Monday, you're going to come in and you're going to set up all these stations, and one kid starts at each station for 30 seconds at a time, and then they switch around. So they do squats, which is legs, right? Russian twists, which are abs. Rows, so these are arms. Sit-ups, back to abs. Med ball, back to arms. Hanging leg raise, back to abs. So you can see how I'm scheduling these exercises to go from one muscle group to another. Arms, abs, legs. Arms, abs, legs. And it doesn't matter where you start, you're going to be just transitioning from one to another. And these Wednesday, Friday, you can change them up, you can do the same thing, but I'm just here giving you some examples. And I'll show you, I think we have this PowerPoint available for people for reference if you want to go back to it and kind of steal these ideas. So now, let's say we're 2 weeks, a month into the season. The kids are getting better. They're looking better in the water. They're looking better on dry land. They're a little more in shape. We want to kind of progress to something new, take them to the next level. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do these 3 different zones: strength, power, and speed. And I think these all feed into each other. So to me, I think they work together. And we're going to go through these one by one to show you what they actually mean. So what is strength training, right? This is kind of like your maxing out effort. And I put that in quotations, and I put this ish here for a reason, because especially teenage guys, I was that guy. If coach told me to max out on squats, I was going to max out. Like I was going to put on as much weight as I could, and I'd be crushed under it. That's really not the point here. The point is to get close to that feeling. You want that feeling, but you do not necessarily have to go to the maximum level that there is, right? That's only going to increase injury. It's going to make you tired. It's going to make you weak. The swimming training that you do is going to suffer, and that's not what we want. Okay, so now that I've explained what this looks like, why does this help? Why do we need to do this? So muscles don't activate like all at once, or nothing at all, right? There's various motor units. Let's say you have thousands of muscle cells in like a bicep, right? So when I activate my bicep, if you see up here, So when I activate my bicep, I'm not activating all 1,000 muscle cells here. I'm only activating a few because I don't need that much power. If I were to activate all of them, I'd punch myself in the face every time I scratched my nose. So this idea, so the way the muscle controls this level of strength is it recruits more and more and more muscle cells to do the job. So if you have a weak job to do, it'll only recruit a few muscle cells. And if you have a heavy job to do, it'll recruit a lot of muscle cells. So when we are untrained, our ability to recruit these muscle cells is very low. Okay, so before training or like during circuit training, you're really not recruiting, you're not involving all of the muscle cells that are available. When you do very heavy weights and max out-ish weights, you're more and more recruiting more and more muscle cells to work. And so this is a nervous system type programming that we're trying to accomplish. What this looks like in real life, so obviously we want somewhat heavy weights. Again, you don't have to max out, you don't have to fail, you don't have to struggle, but we want to keep the reps very, very low. 1 to 2 reps, nice long rest so the kids can actually do it correctly. And we want them to kind of feel under pressure, right? So bringing it back to our swimming motion, so what are some of the exercise examples that we can do for these? So I've kind of divvied them up here. So let's say we're doing jump exercises. What's an ideal exercise for that? Maybe like barbell squats. Do you have to do barbell squats? Of course not. You can do many other things. You can do dumbbell squats. So just holding the dumbbells in your arms, in your hands, put them down, lift them up, put them down, lift them up. Let's say you don't have a weight room. Let's say you don't have a gym. You're on a budget. Single leg squats is a great alternative, right? You don't. Putting a person on one leg and telling them to squat is especially for swimmers, probably enough to get them started. Looking at pulling exercises, I would say pull-ups. This is where pull-ups come in. But you can do other things like a lap machine. Many swimmers, especially girls, they can't really do pull-ups on their own. So maybe they need to start on a machine and work their way up to pull-ups. Pushing exercises, bench press with either the bar, either dumbbells. If you don't have weight, you could do push-ups, one-handed, one-arm push-ups, stuff like that. So just giving you some examples of what exercises to fill in to strength training. And actually, we have all these videos embedded in the PowerPoint. Let me take the pen off. And I'm not going to play all of these. These are just various examples, and these are all little videos that you play, and I actually talk through them to you. Is it going to show us? Maybe. Okay. So I actually talk through frame by frame and tell you what you should be focusing on, what swimmers should be doing properly, and then I do a lot of different variations. So this is the leg press, single leg squats. So I'll show you where to get these on the website. I won't play them for you now, but there's a whole variety of things to do. And
okay, this is our another variation on
oh no.
that I think is great.
Okay, how do I go to the next slide? Oh, it's gonna do this. Okay. Sorry, we're going to troubleshoot in real time. Okay, so strength variations. So we said pull-ups, you can do it with a weight, you can do it without a weight, rowing, lap machines, and then these are the pushing exercises I have on the website. So again, if you want different ideas and you want to learn more about how to do each exercise like accurately, I'll show you where to get them. Okay, let's move on to power. It really wants to test our abilities here. Okay, so power is like the next level down. So we are going to do medium weights, and we're going to keep the reps very low. And now the goal is to move the weight as fast as possible. Okay, so let me give you an example. In the strength part, we want maximum recruitment. So, but if it takes 3-5 seconds to recruit all those muscles to do the job, that's not very helpful, right? When the buzzer goes off and you're on the blocks, you don't want to take 3 seconds to activate all your muscle cells in your legs to jump off, right? We want it to happen fast. We want to jump off the blocks fast. So now we're going to start developing that speed. And we develop the maximum recruitment up here in the chart. But what we need next is early recruitment. So we need the muscles to activate earlier and earlier so that we can get the maximum power as early as possible. And if I had to choose one Dryland thing to do out of everything we're talking about, from the research that I did, this is probably the most effective way to improve things like vertical, pulling power, pushing power. This is, if I only had time for one thing, I would do power exercises. But hopefully we have time to do them all and to learn them all. So again, we're keeping the reps low, 3 to 5. We're going down on the weights. So these should not be very heavy weights. If let's say if you can bench 100 pounds, you want to be in the 50 to 60 pound range. Okay, so almost half of your max. And we want to move the weight as fast as possible. So if at any time you're doing these exercises and the weight and the swimmers are starting to struggle, it's taking them more than like 1.5 to 2 seconds to get the weight to do the rep, they need to come down on the weight. You're too heavy. You're not in this range. And ideally, we want a follow-through component to these exercises. I'll show you what I mean by that. It's kind of difficult to explain, but that is really important because that's going to mimic swimming motions even more than just on dry land. Okay, what are some of the exercises that fall under this category? So again, we divvy them up by jump, pull, and push. Jumping, dumbbell jumps. These are some of my favorites. If your kids are weak off the blocks and you wanted one exercise to make them better, dumbbell jumps are the way to go. Pulling exercises, I think if you have a pulley system or if you have bands, big rubber bands, straight arm pull downs, right? We want to mimic how we swim in the water. So we want the arm to be nice and out with the elbows high. Pushing exercises, lift off push-ups. I really don't have a ton of examples for this, so if you guys have examples, please share them. So let's jump out of here so I can show you just a little bit how these work. So dumbbell jumps, again, this is kind of my favorite one. You take a couple dumbbells, 10, 15 pounds, maybe not more. You set them down, and this is like your starting position, right? This is how we all look when we're about to jump off the blocks for a race. And you pause, and coach says, take your mark, go. And you jump up, and you jump up as high as you can. And we want to mimic, again, I want to stress this, we want to mimic the motion as we go off the blocks here on dry land. So the head is up, the chest is up, the toes are pointed, the knees are straight, as much as possible, right? Obviously, it's not a perfect analog, but it's as much as possible. And for these power exercises, we do 3, maybe 5 reps in a row, and then we take a good long break and we do it again, right? The point is speed. If you don't have weights and you're on, you don't have access to a gym, you can do these with just a chair or a bench and do like one-legged jumps, right? Very simple exercise. So here are the power pulling variations. So you can do it either with a pulley machine, here keeping the elbows nice and high. You can do it with just rubber bands if you don't have access to all of this. Again, many other variations here. I won't go through all of them. And then here's kind of your variant, your pushing variant, which is just a lift-off push-up. So you're pushing all the way through. You want to put a clap in there, go for it. And again, I said I would mention the lift-off or the push-through component. So I think it's best to see it on the jumping. When you squat, let's say you put weight on your back and you do a squat. At the end of the squat, what happens? You stop, right? When you get to when you squat down, you go up and then you stop. Well, that's not exactly what happens when you jump off the blocks. Your muscles, as you jump off the blocks, continually contract until they throw your body off the blocks. Well, we want to mimic that again. And this is where we start incorporating that feature of power in the power version. So being able to jump away and do so I guess what I'm trying to say is we want to train the muscles to continuously contract until there's no ground left to contract against. We don't get that in the strength exercises, so we need to incorporate it in the power and the speed exercises. Just to answer a question in the chat, yeah, I have this presentation. I'll show you where to get it here at the end. Okay, so speed. So we talked about strength. 1 rep, 1 to 2 reps, heavy weight, power, much less weight, moving it faster, getting earlier recruitment. Now speed is trying to mimic the race like as much as possible. So we're gonna reduce the weight almost to nothing, if not nothing, and just do body exercises. I would still keep the reps low. Again, if there's one thing, or if there's two things to take away from the presentation, it's that you shouldn't beat your body down during dryland. It should not take away from what you do in the water. And personally, I don't think there's anything, I don't think there is such a thing as endurance training in dryland. Like even if you did 15, 20 reps, that's not in the same ballpark as the thousands of reps you do even in a race or in workout. So this idea that, oh, I'm going to train kids to be more endurance in the gym, I think that's a misconception. I don't think that's possible. The only thing you can do there really is to improve their injury prevention. But if you're going to use Dryland to improve how we do in races, we need to keep the reps low, keep the rest high, and focus on doing the exercise as well. Okay, so speed is basically like power, but even less weight and more speed. So what do these look like? Jumping exercises, we're going to do box jumps, right? So now we've gotten rid of all the weights, and we just have our body weight to do long jump, jump rope, other variations. So pulling exercises, I think med ball slams, so that way we just have just a tiny, tiny bit of resistance, and we're slamming it into the ground as fast as we can. Pushing exercises, med ball throws, I'll show you kind of what that looks like, laying on your back, pushing those balls around. So here's a quick example. So we get down in our start position just like we're trying to go off the blocks. Pause, right? The kids always just want to jump right on the blocks or on the box. We got to get them to slow down, pause. Swimmers, take your mark, go. And when we get the go signal, we want to mimic jumping off the blocks as much as possible. So the arms swing up, right? When you jump off the blocks, you're trying to get your arms into a streamline. So the arms should go up, the head should go up, the toes should get pointed. And I would encourage you to try to land on the box actually with as straight a legs as you can. Don't worry about jumping onto a high box. Like that's not what we're here for. We're swimmers. We're not box jumpers. So we want to mimic as much as we can jumping off the blocks. And so I think landing with straight legs is more important than trying to land on a very tall box, for instance, okay? Pulling, so again, here's kind of what med ball slams looks like. You get the med ball all the way up high as if you're reaching out, you're extending your arm, and now you want to pull the water down beneath you. You kind of get your fingertips over the ball, keep your elbows as high as you can, and then you slam it down as much as you can. So you can kind of see how we're changing, we're progressing from that strength, power, speed, and these all kind of feed into each other. Maximum recruitment, early recruitment, maximum coordination, okay? Any questions so far? Probably people are jumping in and out. That's no problem. If you guys have questions later on, I'll put my email in the chat today.com. You can always hit me up later with questions. I'm happy to try to respond and help out. Awesome. All right, so let's take a look at abs. You know, we kind of left out abs from all these swimming motions, and that's because it's kind of a little bit different of a beast. You know, the abs don't actually necessarily move us through the water. I mean, they do, but mostly what they do is they connect the body, the upper body and the lower body together so that they can coordinate together and do their job better. So I don't like using the word core. I think it's kind of a vague buzzword. I prefer abs or lower back. Like if you're going to talk about one of these, try to be as specific as you can. And in my mind, you know, when I'm trying to write workouts, I want as much scaffolding to my thought process as I can. So I divide it into upper abs for your sit-ups, crunches, lower abs, your leg raises, flutter kicks, and then your twisty abs, Russian twists, window wipers. And you know, if you want to add in some weighted variations, I have examples of those. You definitely don't need to do these things. I just include them as you know, reference and opportunities for people to take ideas. But to me, that's kind of, I mean, you guys probably do the ab stuff correctly and do it great. And I don't know if I have much to add other than to just compartmentalize and explain to the swimmers what you mean. Okay, let's go back to our presentation so I can draw, and I always have to swap the modes here. Very good. Get my pen out. Okay, we're back. So maybe one of the most underrated concepts in dryland training, something that's kind of left out. We just kind of tell the swimmers, hey, when you're at home watching TV, do some stretching. Do some stretching. I mean, I haven't been in the water in a few months. Maybe someday when I have more time and I get back into training and I want to go back to racing, the first thing I'm going to do is get my flexibility back, okay? It is so important when you watch people like Michael Phelps, like all these Olympians, and they move through the water and their dolphin kicks take them so far and their butterfly, their strokes look so kind of graceful. Why is that? It's because they're flexible, okay? And I can't emphasize enough how important this is. Let's say you're a high school swimmer, right? And you get a bunch of JV kids on the team. They don't swim much. They haven't worn fins ever. These kids are so inflexible. They cannot get into a streamline. If you cannot get in a streamline, it doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how many hundreds you can do on whatever like pace. You will never keep up with someone who can get into a streamline, right? Drag is everything in this sport. Okay, so let's break it down. There's a couple different types of flexibility. There's static flexibility and dynamic flexibility. So static flexibility is just the maximum range of motion. So how much can my joint move, right? The full range of motion. But the dynamic flexibility is almost more important. It's how stiff is that joint, right? So an ankle joint is kind of a great example. Like a lot of people with enough weight, if I push hard enough on your toes, I can probably get your toes to touch the ground and prove to you that your ankle can move that full range of motion. But if it takes 100 pounds to do that versus 10 pounds to do that, it may not be beneficial in the water, right? So we want the joints not just to be loose and flexible, but we want them to be, what's the opposite of stiff? We want them to be malleable, easily malleable. So how do we do that? Well, let's take a look at the natural habitat of a joint, right? So these black things, these are the bones. A space between bones that moves around, that's what we call a joint, right? We got muscles on either side. We've got fascia that encompasses the muscles. We've got these big tendons that go across joints, and all surrounding all of this is this connective tissue. And as you can see, maybe you can't in this diagram, the connective tissue is all very kind of messy and going all over the place. And what our goal is in flexibility training is to remodel that connective tissue so that it's kind of more uniform and the muscles can slide more easily. Can we make these tendons and muscles just a little bit longer so that the joint can actually move more freely and at a more range of motion? And then there's another concept behind flexibility, which is the spasticity of the muscle. So if you've ever cramped, if your foot's ever cramped, you can't move your toes as much, right? That's because the muscle, how spastic that muscle is, controls how much your joint can move. And if you pull a muscle or you injure yourself, what happens? You have all this pain. Let's say you pull a muscle in your shoulder. You have a lot of pain. That's not necessarily because of the tear in the muscle. It's because the rest of the shoulder girdle is contracting and stiffening up to prevent you from moving that joint from injuring yourself further. So is there a way that we can counteract that? Yes. So there's a sensor in all muscles called the Golgi tendon organ. So these are little cells that go through the muscles and tendons, and they report back to the brain, and they tell the brain like how much is this joint moving, or and they control the spasticity of muscles. So when you do stretches, you're actually teaching this sensor to kind of relax and like, hey, you don't need to be so spastic. It takes about 10 seconds to really get that message in to that organ or to that sensor. So especially after dryland, let's say you do a lot of heavy lifting, this organ really likes to freak out, and it likes to make the muscles spastic and tight. And as you can see here, this muscle is a bit shorter than it ought to be. So after dryland or after some weightlifting, if you do some stretching, you can recalibrate this sensor to relax and let the actual muscle kind of elongate again so that you can regain your flexibility. And then obviously when you do even more flexibility training, when you do more stretching, everything is going to adapt to make you more flexible. Now there's one way of stretching that's really, really effective, and I don't think we take advantage enough of it in swimming or as coaches. So there's something called PNF stretching, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Very long name. I'm sure it has many good, meanings behind it. If you've ever been to physical therapy and they make you stretch, they use this a lot in physical therapy. So what's happening here? Basically, you're going to alternate between stretching and then contracting against the stretch. So let's say you pull your leg up, right? We're gonna work on stretching out these hamstrings. You're pulling your leg down, you feel the stretch, right? The next thing you do is you actually push. You push your heel against the resistance. Don't actually push it all the way down. Push it against the resistance for 3 to 5 seconds, and then you relax again. And what you'll notice is that right away that muscle will relax, and you'll be able to pull that leg a lot further than if you had just held it there for 30 seconds. And you repeat that 2-3 times, 3 to 5 second contraction, and then a relaxation again. And you can push and pull that muscle longer, way more than you would expect. So what's going on here? Why is this happening? It's because we're recalibrating this Golgi tendon sensor, right? We're telling it hey, you're too spastic, you're too sensitive, you need to calm down, come back to me where we want to be stretched out. So it's very effective, but I will say, if you're doing this for the first time, it can be very damaging, right? You're stretching out these muscles, and sometimes you might stretch them beyond what they're capable, which is okay. I mean, we damage muscles every time we train, swimming, paddles, fins. Every time you train, you're damaging muscles, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what I want to say is don't leave this for taper. Don't leave this for 3 days before the big championship swim meet and be like, oh, you know what? I forgot to do my flexibility training. I'm going to do it now. That would be a bad time to do this. You want to do this from the beginning of the season. You want to set time aside. You want to teach the kids how to do this for each muscle group, and either do it during Dryland or tell the kids, hey, when you're at home, you're watching TV, do these muscles today, do these muscles on Wednesday, do these muscles on Friday. If you have kids, invite the friends over, put a movie on, do this all together. I think, if you can make this somewhat of a priority in your training, Dryland training, I think you're gonna do great. You're gonna find a big benefit for it. Okay, another cup of water. Any questions so far? We've kind of gone through a lot of the thought process behind Dryland. And I think the next section, this last section we're going to talk through is the season training, periodization. So how am I going to, I can see I'm blocking some of this, so I'll make myself a little smaller. How am I going to incorporate this into my season plan, my swimming season plan? So I've put this together, and I'll show you where you can get it, and a full season worth of sets and what days to do and when to do. Is this the right thing? Is this the optimum thing? I have no idea. This is going to be so dependent on what's available to you. How many days do you train? How good are your swimmers? This is just an example of how I would think through the process of setting up my Dryland training throughout the season. So let's say here, these are the weeks up here. So you're coming in from the off season. The kids are a little out of shape. The first 2 to 4 weeks, we're only going to do circuit training, right? And so we're going to go, this is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, throughout the week, right? And maybe you only do two days a week. Maybe you do 3. It doesn't matter. This is just an example. So instead of doing our jumping, pulling and stretching exercises, we're only going to do circuit exercises. And I gave some examples of what that looks like, and we're going to focus a lot on stretching. So every day at the end of Dryland, we're going to do stretching. Okay, so once we get the kids in a bit of shape, we can move on to this kind of repetition of these 3 weeks, week 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right? As many weeks as are in the season. And we're going to go 1 week of strength, 1 week of power, 1 week of speed training. And so on the week of strength, we're going to do, these sets, these reps, these exercises. And you don't have to necessarily change them up every day. Like if you could, I would choose like a couple of your favorite exercises for each of these, and I would get the kids really good at just those couple things. If you change all the exercises all the time, you're going to spend all season just trying to teach them how to do it right. So choose one good jumping strength exercise, one good pulling strength exercise, and just focus on that all season, or at least half the season before you change it up. Okay, then the next week we go to power, so we switch it up. So again, the sets, the reps, what kind of exercises we're going to do. I won't read through this, put you guys all to sleep. And then the last week we'll do is speed work. And when you're done with that, you go back to strength. And you just repeat the cycle: strength, power, speed, strength, power, speed. But once we get close to the actual championship season and we want to start tapering the kids about 2 weeks, 3 weeks out, we just want to focus on speed. And if you notice what changes here, the sets and the reps go way, way down. We want to keep the intensity high, but we want to take the volume down. So during the season, we're doing 10 to 12 sets of box jumps, for instance. Now during taper, we're down to 2 to 4 sets. We used to do 4 to 6 jumps. Now we're doing 2 to 4 jumps, okay? The rest is going up. Instead of taking 1 to 2 minutes of rest, we're taking 3 to 4 minutes of rest. So when you transition to the taper part of your season, less sets, less reps, more rest on all of these exercises down the road. And I would try to keep your stretching, rolling, however you want to schedule it, keep that going throughout the season. Don't wait till the very end like some people used to do, like myself. That's not a great idea. Okay, so I'm keeping an eye on the chat. If we have questions, I can go back to things. In the meantime, I'm going to just show you some of the resources that we have where you can find these videos, these exercises. If you want to buy anything off the website, use this code webinar10 to get 10% off. So a lot of this information came from my original book, The Biology of Swimming. I do go into a little bit more detail and kind of talk things through, maybe in a little different format. I think I also included it in our Swim Coaches Starter Guide. So for coaches who are new to this and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing here, we have that resource as well. So let's go to the website real quick. So if you come to our website, we've got several tabs at the top. If you come to books, I'll show you where to get the free stuff first. So if you go to free downloadables here, we got a ton of stuff here. And if you go to this Dryland template and you just add it to cart like normal, it'll give you a free PDF download that you'll get. And so this goes through a lot of the information that we just went through. I typed it out. I've got all those examples of exercises, what to do, how many reps, when to do it in the season. I think I even have like an entire 16-week season on there if you want to just steal it and adapt it. And then there's this Dryland exercise video. This has the PowerPoint with, I don't think I have a picture of it here, but this is basically the PowerPoint with all those videos embedded, and you can play them one by one at your own speed. Learn how we think through the different exercises. And then of course we have tons of other downloadable stuff. So workout templates, workout progressions like level 1, level 2, level 3, entire season plans for your actual training. If you want to get the books, so up in the bookstore, Biology of Swimming is here. And we have the Swim Coaches Starter Guide. If you're not a big reader, you don't like to read, you prefer to listen to things, we have both of these books as courses. So if you come under the courses tab and go to the biology of swimming, you can get the entire course. It's like 12 hours of these videos just like this, me teaching you about everything you need to know about the swimming machine. And we have the Dryland is also part of our coaches clinic, or the swim coaches starter guide in there as well. So thanks guys for joining again. I'll stay on a few minutes. I'll kind of talk maybe a little more about Swim Smart, what we do, who we are, for those who are interested in learning more. But if you have questions in the chat, please let me know. If you have questions as you come along after this is done, you can email me, swimsmarttoday.com. Next time we will do cardio. I think it'll be super beneficial and fun. All right, we'll see you guys next time. For those of you sticking around, you don't know what Swim Smart is. So I'm Carl, and my friend, my other coach with me, Mike. We started this a few years ago because we invented stuff for our own swimmers, and we thought, hey, if it helps our swimmers, maybe it'll help somebody else. So we actually started with a lot of these different training devices, and the goal is to fix something in swimming that's a problem. So the squeeze line, right? Kids don't ever streamline. So we invented this little button that they put on their head, and then when they push it, it beeps for them underwater, and it like gives them that habit that, hey, you need to streamline every time you jump off the blocks. When we had kids using the power towers or parachutes, their body alignment would get all off. So we developed this harness to replace the belts that go around the waist, and you can add it with parachutes, stretch cords, power towers. We put together this harness tug of war set, which we think is kind of fun, so kids can actually fight each other and work on their sprinting and have a good time when they're training. One of our more recent ones, these exchange paddles. So a lot of people put on paddles and then they just use their hands to swim, but really we want our entire forearm to swim with early vertical forearm. So these all come with forearm paddles. Let me give a better picture here. So they come with a forearm component, and then you can exchange them for different sizes of the hand components. You can even do these gripper ones where you're forced to actually grip the, here's a little video down here. You're actually forced to grip, and you can only use your forearm. So it's like an improved version of fist drill that is very common in the world. What else? What else can I show you? The push paddle. This is the only device that actually trains your dolphin kick from the top down. This is a totally different version of a paddle. You don't actually put it on and pull with it. You actually put it on your fist just like this, and you try to push it through the water. So it's really awesome for dolphin kick training, breaststroke training, that kind of stuff. Some coaches make their kids put it on their heads and use it for like head alignment drills and training like that. We also have FogX. If you have swimmers that complain about their goggles fogging up, this is the only solution that actually works. So these are little stickers that go inside the goggles, and we recently made snorkel versions for all of these, and you can see the difference, right? You get them wet a little bit before workout, and then they won't fog up for like years, literally. So another, I don't know, I think if I had to choose one device and I was a swimmer, I would choose this one because I like to see where I'm going. I really hated being blind by fog. And if you don't want any of those and you just want some fun t-shirts, we got a swag shop with something for everyone, especially parents who are sometimes roped into helping out on the swim team, whether they like to or not. But anyway, I think that's kind of everything we got. Thanks again for joining. I really enjoy these. Hopefully other people enjoy them. We're getting some likes, so we'll keep them going. Join us next time for cardio. Thanks, guys.